Thank you. Good morning, everyone. And as they say in Italy, buon domenica. Good Sunday. We're studying Italian, so that's okay. Our topic this week is from Rays of the One Light by Swamiji. We are children of the light. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda. It is common for people to perceive themselves according to their present realities. A person in ill health says, "I am ill." Few say, "I am well. It is my body that is suffering." People in a low income bracket say, "I am poor." Only the unusual person will say, "Though outwardly I live in poverty, inwardly I am wealthy." Thus, when it comes to moral and spiritual development, people commonly identify themselves with their weaknesses and their mistakes. They consider it almost a sign of humility to say, "I am a sinner," though in effect what this means is that they identify themselves and with their sinfulness, not with the soul's power to transcend all limitations in God. The great masters, including Jesus Christ, have always emphasized the divine potential of humanity. They encourage us, they address us as children of the light, not of darkness. The Bible, in the Gospel of St. John, chapter 3, makes the point that our true home is not the mud of this earth, but the light of heaven. Quote, "No man hath ascended up to heaven," it tells us, "but him that came down from heaven." This passage continues, "Even so, the Son of Man who is in heaven," emphasizing that Jesus, though he lived on earth, is perceived by the eye of wisdom as conscious, even in human form, of his true identity in heavenly spheres. The way to know God is to live in godly consciousness and not to bewail our imperfections and our distance from God. Jesus said, "Blessed are the pure of heart, for they shall see God." And the Bhagavad Gita states, "Seekers of union with the Lord find him dwelling in their own hearts, but those who, lacking in wisdom, seek him with impure motives cannot perceive him, however much they struggle to do so." If you want to know God, Paramahansa Yogananda said, live in the thought that you have him already. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. Om, Om, Om.
Good morning, friends. So, we have a great topic today, so we'll have fun with it. I'll start with this reading from Paramahansa Yogananda from Whispers from Eternity. These prayer demands it's as if Master has addressed every little nuance of consciousness and every little facet of our hearts and how to direct that toward God and toward the real adventure that we're engrossed in, which is self-awakening. So this is the demand for realization of God's presence. O Divine Father, thou art just behind my prayer. Why dost thou seem so far away? Thou dost tremble in my feelings. Thy presence glimmers through the veil of my thoughts, yet dost thou seem so far away. Father, come, remove thy veil. Come, Father, come. Hear the voice of my prayer. I want to know thee, to talk to thee, to hear thee. Speak to me. I want to pray to thee and know that thou dost hear my prayer. Show me the way that leads to thee. These great prayer demands. You know, if we could take one of them and really live it, we'd be done. This grand adventure of self-awakening, you know, we're going to end our Sunday service by reading the Festival of Light. And in that is the story of the bird, which is the story of the soul's gradual evolution from coming from God, forgetting that fact, and then gradually awakening to the fact that we are God. One time, Yogananda said to a group of disciples, if you could convince yourself that you were one with God, you'd be one with Him, you'd be self-realized in this moment. And one of the disciples said, yes, but I couldn't do that just by thinking, could I, Master? And Master said, well, you've answered your own question. Because it's our thoughts, our inability to expand our consciousness that self-limits us. If we could get beyond that, if we could truly, the power of our mind is so vast and so infinite that we would tremble if we knew the power of our own consciousness. But we are self-limiting. And so the evolution of consciousness is a gradual evolution of opening up to the greater and greater reality that already resides within us. Yesterday, Dharmadas told me a story about Fred Rogers. Now, we had dinner with Fred Rogers on Friday night, sitting in the audience here, one of the members of the congregation, but this is a different Fred Rogers. This is the Mr. which I'm sure he's well aware of, the Mr. Rogers of television fame. So, and it's about one of the animals that was kind of a breakthrough animal of us understanding that animals have consciousness. There was a gorilla named Coco, quite a famous gorilla, quite a famous animal. And the trainers finally figured out that gorillas can't speak because they don't have the vocal cords that allow human speech, but they have the ability to manipulate, and so they taught Coco sign language. And Coco learned 500 words, 1,000 words, a lot of words for an animal. And one of the things that Coco could do was take a concept, and even though she didn't have the language, she could figure out the language. And there was one time she wanted a fruit, and so she didn't have the word for that fruit, but she combined water and fruit, and she wanted a piece of watermelon. But she'd never been taught that. She just, so there was a consciousness. The point here is there's an expansion of consciousness on many levels. So this story about Fred Rogers that I heard is Coco used to love to watch Mr. Rogers' My Neighborhood on television. And so one time, the man, Mr. Rogers, came to visit her. And when he came, because when he started the program, he always came in and took his shoes off. When he came to visit her, she got very excited and then went up and took his shoes off. Isn't that sweet? But what it shows is the gradual expansion of consciousness. And so there is an evolutionary expansion of consciousness that happens and we're involved in that. But Master and the great scriptures of India say that man is a special dispensation because unlike the rest of the animal kingdom, we are born with a developed enough nervous system, and especially the inner nervous system, which is the chakras and the elements of consciousness, that is highly enough developed within us that we can finally make the breakthrough and see ourselves not according to our limitations, but according to our potential. Our potential is to be one with God. And our soul, see, the soul gets confined in a body and confined in a personality. And the ego, whether on the level of an animal or a human or wherever, the ego is simply the soul convinced that it is subject to the limitations of this particular body and this particular personality. And as long as our minds think that, then we're limited by that thought. But it isn't real. Nowadays, we have many, many people who write or speak about after-death experiences. And we have, of course, the masters and the great scriptures that say our consciousness is not limited by being in a body, that our consciousness survives. And so the consciousness survives death. And so these people who've had near-death experiences and then felt the vastness of their consciousness expand because it was no longer limited by the body, they are kind of harbingers of possibilities for us. But the masters have been telling us that for a long time. Now you and I are going to go through a process of, right now, to the extent that we're mesmerized and thinking that our life is contained by this body and this personality, that delusion is going to be broken. And it's going to be broken either at the time of death, or if we're good yogis, we're going to break it before we die. And that's, to a certain extent, one could define meditation and the practices of our path by us trying to consciously release our consciousness from the limitations of the body and personality. And so as we meditate and try to calm our mind, calm the restlessness of the thoughts, Master said that meditation is deep concentration, focus on God or on one of the aspects of God. 8 aspects of God, one of which is light, which we're talking about today. So if, as our minds become calm, we can stop thinking of ourselves as a personality or as Swami Kriyananda had a wonderful definition for the ego. It was a bundle of self-definitions. Or we could call it a bundle of self-limitations. And so we come in and we have these self-limitations, these self-definitions. And so if we calm down and begin to get the mind so it isn't thinking, another way of thinking of these self-limitations could be a bundle of filters over how we see the world, how we react, how we behave. If we can just set those filters aside for a little while and calm down, then we can begin to see a deeper resonance of our own true self, which is one of the aspects, which is God, or in this case, one of the aspects of God. So we are children of the light. We are children of the Om. We are children of love. We are children. And if we can begin to self-identify as those eternal qualities, then we can pass through the dying process and death and go on. And we don't have to lose consciousness, The great masters, they don't lose consciousness at the time of death because they've already learned to exit the body with their consciousness, and being able to do that at the time of death, it's just another, that's why we call it Mahasamadhi, because they've been doing it, and this is the great one. They're just going to do it for the last time in this particular body. So even if we can, I don't know, at the time of death, all of us are working toward what Swami Kriyananda called the final exam. If at the time of death we can think of ourselves as light or as some aspect of God, then we'll go into that consciousness. Reminds me of a joke. Somebody in India, a man in India, heard this teaching, that if you can think of God at the time of death, then you will merge with God. He thought, that's wonderful. And so he thought, well, when I die, obviously my children are going to be around me, so I'm going to name all of my children after an aspect of God. Krishna and Rama and Lakshmi and Sita, and so had 12 children, all of them with names of God. And here the time of his death came, and he was on his bed dying, and he was looking around. He said, oh, Krishna, oh, Rama and Lakshmi and Sita, and he was repeating the name of God. And then he said, you're all here, all with me at the time of death. Who's minding the store? And so, but if at the time of death we have been able to overcome whatever self-limiting thought we have, then we'll be free and we won't have to reincarnate, because it's our desires or our limitations that draw us back. And so this passage of thinking of ourselves as children of light is a very, very important one. The more we self-limit, the more confined of a cage we have created for ourselves. And so just in little ways, we should not, don't say, for instance, I'm old. You might be able to say, my body is getting old, but I'm not my body. That's okay, as long as you don't convince yourself of a falsehood. Convince yourself that you're a child of light, because that is indeed what we are. We are children of God and these aspects of God, and we've just taken a form. And so let's lay down this heavy burden of a bundle of self-definitions to whatever extent we can. And then at the moment of death, let's go and take Master's shoes off and greet him.
So I'll share a few words as well. And but before, I just want to thank all of you here in our wonderful Sacramento community and our Sangha here. We've had a number of events over the weekend that many of us have participated in, and it's just been splendid. It just has been, we've enjoyed ourselves so much, and we thank all of you. You know, some of you may not know us. This is Nayaswamis Jyotish. I'm Nayaswamis Devi, and we're the directors of Ananda worldwide, and we do a lot of traveling, but one of the joys is to come and be with friends wherever we are, and Master's children are our family, so it's lovely to come and visit this branch of our family. So we are children of the light. There's a wonderful story that Swami tells in The New Path, his autobiography, of a vision that Master had. Master shared this with the disciples. And in the vision, Master was in a crowd in a village in a crowded marketplace, and there were people selling and hawking and yelling, and it was hot and it was dusty, and there were little children running around and monkeys coming in grabbing some of the fruit from the vendors, and just chaotic and just overwhelming to all the senses, the smell and the sight and the sound. And every once in a while, something curious would happen. A person, and which Master noticed, this was a vision. Let me repeat that. Not a made-up story. It was a vision that Master had. And someone would kind of wander to the edge of the marketplace and look up at something, and then kind of sigh and come back to the noise and the commotion. And after seeing this 2 or 3 times, Master got a little curious, and he went over, what are they looking at? And he saw this beautiful mountain that was just filled with fresh air and silence and light, but it was very steep, and he thought, oh, I would love to climb that mountain, but it's so steep. How could I climb it? And he realized that's what everyone else was thinking. And then he stopped, and for all of us, he said, I may not make it to the top, but I can take the first step. And he began. And that's where we all are. By coming here today, and by practicing meditation, by studying and learning kriya-yoga and practicing it, by serving, by developing deeper in your discipleship, you're saying, I'm taking the first steps up that mountain, which of course is an allegory for the journey to union with God. That people feel, oh, it's I don't know if I can do it. So what I'd like to share next is, what are the reasons we think we can't make it to the top, and what are the aids that enable us to do so? So I think the first reason that we all have why we can't ascend the mountain is, I'm not good enough. I've made mistakes. I have bad attitudes, whatever it may be. And this, we were talking about self-limitation. This binds us. And Swami Kriyananda said something very helpful, and I want you all to remember this. He said, any time you have a thought that's denigrating or putting yourself down or thinking I'm not good, he said, remember that is a satanic influence. That's the power of darkness trying to keep you limited. That's very important to remember. Every time you think, oh, I'm a bad person, I'm not good enough, I'm unimportant, whatever it might be, that's the power of darkness trying to keep you limited, and push back. Push back. Maybe I've made mistakes, but I will not identify with them. I will not hold on to them. As one of Master's disciples said, do you expect me to worship my mistakes? And that's what a lot of us do. And so that's the first thing. We think we're not good enough. And then we think, as the people in the marketplace, oh, it's so steep. I don't know if I have the energy to do it. But remember that it's not our own energy. The divine calls us to unite with Him. And if we just say, I'm willing, the energy comes. I can't tell you how many times in our life that we've been pushed beyond what we thought we could keep doing. But if we say, I will not stop, you get that second wind. Jyotish and I have both, it may not look like it, but we have run marathons. And you hit that point where you just feel nothing's left, I can't go on. But if you just keep putting one foot in front of the other, you think you hit your second reserve. And you keep going. And so to think we don't have the energy is, again, to identify with our limitations. And if you push past, we were talking with the group yesterday, someone was asking how to really develop greater depth in meditation. And we suggested when you get to the point where you kind of feel your energy dropping, you can't go on, say, I will meditate 5 more minutes. And it pushes you past that limitation. And then you take the next step and the next step. So the feeling that we don't have enough energy to do it. And then there's the thought, what if I fail? What if I try really hard and I can't do it? But on the spiritual path, there is no failure. In that beautiful song, The Hill That Was Tara, that Swami wrote, every effort we spend brings more light in the end until our gladness in God's ever new. And so, Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita Arjuna asks Krishna that same question, Lord, what if I try and I don't achieve the goal? And Krishna, with his great reassurance, says, my devotee is never lost. Wherever you leave off in one lifetime, you will pick up again in the next. So don't worry about, I don't think I can reach that goal. You just go as far as you can. And each step you take is a permanent gain. Don't forget that. It is a permanent gain. And then finally, what holds us back is fear of the unknown. I kind of know my ego. I'm familiar with it. It's comfortable in a sense. It doesn't quite fit, but it's what I know. It's like we're wearing borrowed clothes. When I was a little girl, I was very, very skinny. And I had an old cousin who was a few years older who was plump. And I would always get her hand-me-downs. And they never fit properly. And it was always like I was wearing somebody else's clothes. Well, that's what the ego is. You're wearing somebody else's clothes. That's not you. And so, and really, as you begin to experience more and more your own higher self, it's who you are. It's much more familiar than your ego. And, in the poem Samadhi, Master says, thou art I am thou, knowing, knower, known as one. And so that's it's not unknown. And as you grow spiritually, you realize God within you is the most familiar thing you will ever experience because it's your true self. Okay, now what motivates us up that mountain? Well, there's the negative and the positive. The negative is, Master talks about lifetime after lifetime, we develop an anguish, with all the experiences in the marketplace of life, an anguishing sense of monotony. I've done this before, I failed, I succeeded, I won, I lost, but at the end it was all nothing. And that anguishing monotony which drives us forward, that says there must be something more than this marketplace. I don't know what's at the top of the mountain, but it's sure better than where I am now. And so that anguishing monotony pushes us forward. But then there's also the memory of a time of union with God, and we reach out for it, and it's what motivates it. I think we all, someone was telling me yesterday, and I won't say the name, someone sitting here because it's private, and she said, as a young person, I often went into heightened states of samadhi. I didn't know what it was. And I didn't know who to ask what it was. But I think and then I found Master's teachings and he explained to me what it was. We remember. That's why the great yogis, Patanjali, said that union with God is smriti, memory. And whether it's vibrantly conscious to our awareness or not, there's some memory of a lost joy, a lost home in God, a lost sense of total peace and freedom and oneness. And no matter what you've done, the worst sinner, that memory is still within them and within us. And that's what motivates us on. I remember, I want that. Some years ago, Swami sent two of our ministers, to Nigeria because there was a man living there who had a bookstore. And he had a copy of Swami's book in a little town. Kind of, how did it get there? No one ever knew. But our two ministers went, and they gave a few talks, and then they went to a certain area, and they said, we're going to start giving some meditation classes, and we want to see who's interested. So if they were staying in a very small cabin, that was all there was. But they said, if you're interested, come and let us know you want to take the classes. And then the next day, one by one, there'd be a little knock on their door, and there'd be a very kind of shy, timid person there saying, I want this, I want it. And one by one, I want it, I want it. And we have that within ourselves. We're tired of the anguishing monotony, and we want that memory, that lost experience that we once had. And then finally, the greatest, let's say, rocket in our journey is the magnetism of God and Guru. Because we don't do it by ourselves. We can't do it by ourselves. But they see the sincere soul, and they reach down. They say, if we hold up one hand to God, He holds out two to us and pulls us up. And I can't tell you, or I shouldn't say I can't tell you. It would take a long time to tell you how many times I've just thought, I can't do this anymore. And then the grace of God comes, and you feel those two hands and saying, come, take my hand. We will go forward. We will reach the top of the mountain. And so we are children of the light. That's who we are. And as St. Augustine said, Lord, thou hast made us for thyself alone, and our hearts are restless until they find our rest in thee. And that's the end game. That's the whole journey. Each one of us in this room have had different life experiences, different disappointments, different fulfillments. But for all of us, the journey is just to realize we are children of the light, and to keep moving forward until that realization that we are one with the light. We have come from the light. We live in the light. We will merge in that light. That's the only realization, the only thought that fills our consciousness. So God bless you.